STEM school is another student who's just starting. So we have a really close connection besides what Dr. Heba and other parts of GSD did to support STEM schools from the beginning. Okay, the final presentation by Ms. Hanya, yes, Azzouni, about creativity. So before we all break up and before she starts, we'd like to thank you again for coming today, and hopefully we'll have another meeting of the graduates for the next semester on June 2nd. So we'll welcome you all then. Ms. Hanya.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here and waiting so long. I'm the last presentation, so I'll try and make it short and sweet. And it's a fun topic, so it'll be quick. Okay, so my topic is basically about art education in Egypt, looking at the informal sector mostly outside of schools, focusing on the visual arts because that's where I work, in painting and drawing specifically. And it's a very personal topic. Like those of you who know me know this is all I talk about. I'm very passionate about it, and like Jihan was saying, my first class in research methods, that's all I ever researched. All my annotations with Dr. Jihan were on art education, and then it's carried through these 3 years of the program. So it's nice that it's come to an end. Why I'm passionate about the topic is something that I benefited from as I grew up in my school years. And as a teacher, as an artist, I see this every day in my students, and I think it's very, very important. The children have an outlet to create or to express themselves in other aspects other than writing or math or science. And there's so many stories. I could go on and on about all these stories, but it really has an impact on children. And I remember very well in my first year as a teacher, I had a student and he was drawing a picture of his family, and I always like to prompt him or ask him to describe what they're doing. And he's 4 years old, so I looked at the family picture and I only asked if I know the background. So I said, but there's who's in this picture? So he said, mommy, me, my cat, and my dog, and my sister. So I said, where's your dad? And I knew that his dad was in the picture, at home. He said, my dad's not in the picture because my dad sleeps at work. So I just looked at him, and he just said it very matter of fact, but that moment just broke my heart because he used his artwork to sort of say something about his own life, and he didn't know how much impact that had on him. So that's why I can go on and on, but it's just something I feel very passionate about, and I feel like it's important for children today, especially in Egypt, with everything that's going on after the revolution. We all know that that's the medium people turn to. They turn to the walls, they turn to graffiti, to performing arts. So there's something there, and I think we owe it to ourselves to incorporate it in education. Okay, so the methods I worked on, it was basically I wanted to find out what's happening. And again, back at the very beginning of our program, they said the purpose of research is to fill a gap in knowledge. So this is what I was trying to do, and through an exploratory study, exploring the topic and trying to find out more about the perceptions, the opinions, and why art as a subject is where it is today. In the most general sense, in my own opinion, through my work, it's a very underrated topic. People don't care for it very much. It's the last thing people think about, or it's a luxury. So I wanted to find out if that's true and to what extent. The literature review was helping me to go through the international standards to see what's happening in the world, people talking about it. And we see it in the news all the time, like the arts programs are cut, the drama programs are cut. So why these things happen, and to help us understand more what's going on in the whole world. My participant interviews were with people who I thought were key stakeholders in Egypt, who are working on the ground, informally, outside schools, to create an impact, whether through art, whether through drama, to incorporate that for children and to see how it really affects them. So I chose 6 people who I thought would be able to give me their own experiences and maybe put that together to see what the main issues are. So basically I was looking for perceptions on the subject, opinions, and good practices. So we needed to highlight something positive. A lot of the times when we talk about education, there's always all the negative things or what we need to fix. But sometimes we just don't know that there are good things happening, and we can build on those even more. The results and findings were really interesting. They were 6 people, so it wasn't a huge sample, but they were separate interviews, so it was not a focus group. And I found that a lot of them, kept going on about the same thing. Some of them had been through an art education themselves. Some of them were practicing artists today or teachers, and they all criticized the same things, or they had the same concerns. So it was really interesting for me, once I had all the data, is to put it all together and see what the themes were across everything. Some of the main themes that I broke things down into were characteristics of art, the role of arts education, the problems of arts education in Egypt, the workshop environment, something that came up from the participants, teachers and the problem of teacher training, creativity, exploration, and experimentation, and the lack, therefore, of it, and the hopes people had for arts education, where they saw it in the future. So I gathered information about their organization, their activities, what they did. That's why it was so easy to contact these people, because they want to talk about the work. First-hand experiences. So some of them have been through this education. They know what it's like. They took out critical things, and they made it better in their own teaching. Their opinion, their ideas, what they see, what they hear, and their perceptions about art, what benefit it's given them or their students as well. Okay, so in my interpretations and conclusions, initially when I started the program, I said to Dr. Hanya, there's no literature on arts education, there's no arts education in Egypt, and I felt like there was nothing there. But it does exist and it is happening. You know, there are a lot of things taking place, more than we think, and there is a movement towards that. One of the main problems that came up across the board was outdated teacher training, lack of importance to the subject. Teachers in general don't feel like they matter, and then if there are teachers, even more so. And the traditional institutions, we all know that, we've all been through that and talked about it in all our discussions we've had, but the traditional setting of everything, you know, there's no space for that to create a thing. And I remember one of the interviewees gave me an example. He said, in my art class, we used to go in once a year, in the whole academic year, and we had clay on the table. And our teacher told off one of the students, hit him with a ruler because he touched the clay. And that for me, that's shocking, because clay is meant to be touched. You're supposed to go into art class and create, but he said, you know, it's awful. You're not supposed to touch the materials until I tell you to. So for art, that doesn't make any sense. So more examples like that for, you know, what happens in Egypt. Art can be taught for cultural understanding. Like I said, after the revolution, there's been a lot of dialogue, there's been a lot of back and forth. And not to sound cliche, but I think we need something like that. We need people to be able to converse, to communicate in other ways, you know, other than TV shows and conversations. And children especially, children will go to that medium as a way of, you know, talking about things or expressing themselves, like the example of Little Boy. The negative perceptions are widespread, so it's not only Egypt. It is a cultural thing, it's related to political factors, religious factors, economic factors, but it's the same in the West. Many of my interviewees said the same thing. Many of them, actually, all 6 of them, at some point studied abroad, which is very interesting for me because they felt like they had to leave the country to gain some knowledge, but come back. So those are the things that I took out of my research. And as well, they all talked about the positive impacts, you know, on themselves or on their students or how it affected them. So it's something that I know it's there. I see it, and I'm glad that my interviews showed that as well. And they all talked about the lack of research, or the lack of importance, or the effect, the psychological effect, or the emotional effect, or how art can supplement or complement with other subjects as well. And accessibility to public space, to creative spaces, to cultural outlets. All of that is, you know, when something goes wrong in the country, the first thing they do is cancel like an art festival or a music festival. Even though if they had left it, people would have probably gone there and just, you know, let out their energy. So that's the problem with the status quo here in Egypt. Okay, so my limitations in future research. Number of participants. As it was an exploratory study, I wanted to have easy access to people who are already in the field. The next step is definitely to go into the formal school system. And, you know, see what curricula are there, are they being implemented or not, do they just exist? So that's a whole other realm, but I think it would be really, really interesting to go into. The variety of methods, I did interviews, but I think having a focus group would have definitely helped more to put all these people in one room. You know, when they talk separately, they all said these things, so if they had all met maybe, it would have been very interesting. The geographic focus, I was focusing mostly on Cairo. I'm sure there are other initiatives outside of Cairo that were very, very interesting as well. I know there's something going on in Aswan, an arts education initiative there. So I think that's something that I could add as well. For future research, the key factors, things like politics, economy, religion, all those things are a huge research aspect, but I think they have a big impact on the topic and they need to be looked into. That lead to the perceptions, you know, why do people perceive art in education as it is today? The focus, I focus on the visual arts mostly, and the informal sector. Like I said, the formal sector would complement that very well. The measurable impact of art, so measuring it in Egypt, you know, there are studies about the impact of art with children and music and math and the relationship between that, but maybe designing a study specific to our culture would be very, very useful. Okay. So I feel like this is my Oscar moment, so I wrote down everything that I wanted to say. Okay, I'd like to thank my parents. They're the reason I am who I am today. Thank you for letting my creativity flow and always believing that art was important and that it's not. Thank you to my fiance, Ahmed, who has shared my entire undergraduate and graduate experience at UC. I'm very happy I'm here and your support means the world. My family and my friends who are here and abroad, thank you for always being there. Dr. Jennifer, who is abroad, she was like the whole advice, the support. I wouldn't have done it without her. And she believed in my topic right from the start. Thank you so much, Dr. Malak. You really helped me finish it and make it perfect. So thank you very much. And, okay. And last and definitely not least, thank you heartfelt to all of everyone, faculty, administration, students. You have all given me faith, faith and hope in Egypt. I'm glad I did my MA here because I wouldn't have got this anywhere else in the world. As researchers and teachers, I think we have the best job in the world. So thank you for showing me that.
I'll just say thank you again for coming and looking forward to seeing you on June 2nd with several more research studies